Blackwing MetaMasters is actually in 2 parts, and if you missed the first part, click the annotation above to go watch that. It's pretty good, in my opinion. This second part will cover the meta-defining spells, traps, and extra deck Blackwing cards that have popped up in numerous event-topping lists throughout Yu-Gi-Oh's history. Before we start, I want to address one question from the last video, which was why I really didn't mention the new support. That's because it's only topped one single regional. And in the series MetaMasters, I try to look at cards that have defined an archetype's presence in the Yu-Gi-Oh metagame. While the new support is strong, it came out way too late to bring Blackwings back to the forefront of the metagame, and it's unfortunate. With all that said though, let's get into Blackwing MetaMasters Part 2. When we think of Blackwings, it's impossible not to remember one of the most broken cards in the archetype, Black Whirlwind. It's got a simple but powerful effect that reads, when a Blackwing monster is normal summoned to your field, you can add one Blackwing monster from your deck to your hand with less attack than that monster. This allows the deck to maintain strong card advantage as you search through your deck for a lot of the weaker Blackwing monsters. For example, you can normal summon Shura, then use Black Whirlwind to search for Gale, then use Gale's effect to special summon itself, then Synchro Shokan for a level 7 Synchro monster. Easy as that, and since it's a continuous spell, you can activate it every turn that you normal summon. If you somehow manage to normal summon twice that turn, perhaps with a card like Sea Moon, the Poison Winds, you can activate Black Whirlwind multiple times per turn, netting you even more advantage. Black Whirlwind was so good that it was on the ban list at 1 and was still helping Blackwings get tops in the older days of Yu-Gi-Oh! It's a great card and a staple of 3 of in any Blackwing build. Delta Crow Anti-Reverse is probably the best trap card in the archetype. It reads that if you control a Blackwing monster, destroy all face-down spells and traps your opponent controls. If you control exactly 3 Blackwing monsters, you can activate this card from your hand. HARPIE'S Feather Duster immediately comes to mind when I read this card. But there are some crucial distinctions between these 2 cards. Delta Crow is a trap, but it can become a pseudo spell if you control 3 or more Blackwings, which is a really neat bonus and rewards the swarming capability of Blackwing monsters. Also, you can activate this card from your hand during either your turn or your opponent's turn if you control 3 or more Blackwings. However, the most important difference is that HARPIE'S Feather Duster is banned and this card is unlimited. Delta Crow works best in heavy back row formats and often allows Blackwings to just go for game after its activation. And the best part is that it only destroys your opponent's back row, but only the face down back row, by the way. Whereas Heavy Storm, which was legal at the time this card saw meta play, was only at 1 copy and also destroyed your own back row. Though this card requires a bit of setup, too much for modern Yu-Gi-Oh!, the reward for doing so can be absolutely devastating to your opponent. Black Sonic is a fairly good counterpart to Delta Crow. Whereas Delta Crow wipes your opponent's face down back row like HARPIE'S Feather Duster, Black Sonic is like a Mirror Force, but a bit different. When an opponent's monster declares an attack on a Blackwing monster you control, you can just banish all face-up attack position monsters your opponent controls, and if you control exactly 3 Blackwing monsters and no other monsters, you can activate this card from your hand. Being able to banish instead of destroy your opponent's monsters is usually amazing, especially when you consider that a lot of monsters have effects that trigger when it's sent to the graveyard. In that regard, Black Sonic may appear a lot better than Mirror Force. However, Mirror Force can be activated during any attack, whether or not you control any monsters, which makes it more versatile. What happens when your opponent clears your field before the battle phase? What happens when you have a powerful board that your opponent can't even attack into? In too many instances, Black Sonic is often a dead card. So while Black Sonic on paper might seem really powerful, if not broken, it's just not versatile enough to be a main deck or even side deck option for a competitive modern Blackwing build. That's it for the spells and traps from Blackwings that I would consider relevant. Most are pretty bad or even flat out terrible and never saw meta play, but hey, at least a few did. So let's move on to the real meat of Blackwings, the synchros. Is Blackwing meat like chicken meat? I don't even want to think about that. Blackwing Armed Wing was one of the first Blackwing monsters and it gains 500 attack when it attacks a defense position monster, and it does piercing damage. It was used because it was the best level 6 Blackwing monster for its time. Its effect is pretty lackluster. In combination with Sirocco boosting its attack, it can OTK sometimes, but really it's a pretty bad Blackwing card and really shows its age. Blackwing Armor Master used to be a near unstoppable beast. A level 7 synchro that can't be destroyed by battle, and also you take no battle damage from attacks involving this card. At the end of the damage step, if this card attacked a monster, you can place 1 wedge counter on that monster. Maximum 1. You can remove all wedge counters from your opponent's monsters, and the attack and defense of those monsters that had wedge counters becomes 0 until the end of this turn. Being immune from destruction by battle, and even weakening your opponent's monsters through wedge counters, made Armor Master a Blackwing staple for a tremendously long time. While spot removal would eventually get better as Yu-Gi-Oh! Progressed, and Armor Master would eventually fall by the wayside, its legacy as a near unstoppable war machine helped push Blackwings to meta status in its early years. In 2015, we got one of my favorite Blackwing monsters, Blackwing No Thund the Starlight. A level 6 synchro that reads, if this card is special summoned, inflict 800 damage to your opponent, then you choose one monster your opponent controls and it loses 800 attack and defense. You can only use that effect of No Thund once per turn, and during your main phase you can normal summon one Blackwing monster in addition to your normal summoner set, and you only gain that effect once per turn. Once this card came out, everyone immediately took their armed wings and threw them in the trash. This thing is an amazing level 6 synchro. Though the burn damage and stat reduction is a bit extra, and it can help a bit when pushing for the OTK, the real spice of this card is its ability to grant you an additional normal summon on your turn. Not only does this put more bodies on the board to extend your plays or put more damage on board, but if you have Black Whirlwind, you can get a second search and extend even further, an excellent card that synergizes extremely well with Blackwings, even to this day. Blackwing Tamer Obsidian Hawk Joe is, in my opinion, a pretty good synchro monster. It's also kind of a humanoid thing. It looks really weird. It's a level 7 with the effect that you can target one level 5 or higher winged beast type monster in your graveyard and special summon it. During either player's turn, when your opponent activates a card or effect that targets only this card, or when your opponent targets this card for an attack, you can target one other Blackwing monster you control that is an appropriate target, and that card effect or attack now targets that new target that you chose. You can only use each effect of Blackwing Tamer Obsidian Hawk Joe once per turn. Its first effect is good for recovery or for working your way to their super boss monster that I'll talk about later. It can also help put some more damage on board, which Blackwings always appreciate. If you were to revive a No Thund, you can get that additional normal summon, which is helpful. Its second effect is good for keeping Hawk Joe alive from monster attacks or effects, which comes up sometimes. Obsidian Hawk Joe is worth running a copy of in Blackwing Extra decks because it does come up sometimes in grindier games. Now we get into a category of Blackwing synchros that are called Assault Blackwings. The special ability that they all have in common is that when they're synchro summoned using a Blackwing monster as material, they become tuners. Not all of them saw use, but the ones that did happened to enhance the Blackwing playstyle. So let's talk about them. Assault Blackwing Sohaya the Rainstorm has the effect that when this card is synchro summoned, you can target one Assault Blackwing monster in your graveyard, special summon it. During your main phase, if this card is in your graveyard because it was sent there this turn, you can banish one other Assault Blackwing Sohaya the Rainstorm from your graveyard, special summon this card. Both of these effects are hard once per turns. The second effect will never come up, but the first effect is really good at extending your plays. If you used a Blackwing monster to summon this, which I assume you did, you're probably playing Blackwings, then you can use its first effect to revive a level 7 from the graveyard and synchro into their super powerful boss monster, which I'll get into later. So we'll hold on to that thought for now. Overall, it's a good card that, even if you don't do the play I just mentioned, it can help extend your plays as you climb the synchro ladder. It's solid Blackwing support. Assault Blackwing Chidori the Rain Sprinkling is one of two level 7 Blackwing synchros that Sohaya can combo with. This card gains 300 attack for each Blackwing monster in your graveyard. When this card is destroyed and sent to the graveyard, you can target one Winged Beast type synchro monster in your graveyard except Assault Blackwing Chidori the Rain Sprinkling, special summon it. Even without using this as a material for their boss monster, this card can rack up a ton of attack points and can win games on its own. Often you'll have your grave filled with Blackwings, so it supports the do a lot of damage, attack style of Blackwings. Its second effect, to revive a Winged Beast synchro monster in your graveyard when destroyed, is neat. It's also not limited to the Blackwing archetype, though I doubt that has ever mattered. I would call it the pseudo boss monster of Blackwings, and it can get really ridiculously strong. Assault Blackwing Rikiri the Rain Shadow provides some great spot removal for Blackwings. As a level 7 synchro, it's pretty easy to bring out as well. Once per turn, you can target cards your opponent controls up to the number of other Blackwing monsters you control, destroy them. In some crazy dimension, some madman Blackwing player managed to pop 5 cards with this, though realistically you're probably gonna destroy 2 to 4, which is still pretty great. It helps clear out back row or monsters to help Blackwings go in for the kill. It's a great card overall. Now, the moment you've all been waiting for, the great boss monster of Blackwings, the level 12 Assault Blackwing Onimaru the Divine Thunder. It reads that it cannot be destroyed by card effects. You can target one Blackwing monster in your graveyard. This card's level becomes the same as that monster's. You can only use this effect of Assault Blackwing Onimaru the Divine Thunder once per duel. If this card that was synchro summoned using only synchro monsters attacks, this card gains 3000 attack during the damage step only. It has protection, it can get up to some crazy attack values, 6000 to be exact. What's not to like? Well, it's a bit difficult to get out. Though it's a generic synchro monster that gets its protection from card effect destruction no matter what, it's still way too difficult to get out. It requires a lot of resources, and it is often better to have more of the smaller monsters on the field, which would have a multitude of useful effects and probably more damage than Onimaru on its own. It's a neat card, but it's just way too extra for any Blackwing extra deck. And that's every meta-relevant Blackwing card. Every single one. Definitely didn't miss any of them. Okay, fine. I'll look at the new Blackwing support. Maybe one day Blackwings will be meta-relevant again. A boy can dream. Blackwing Simoon the Poison Wind is great at fetching Black Whirlwind, which was basically unsearchable in Blackwings before. Also, by normal summoning itself after activating Black Whirlwind from your deck, Black Whirlwind gets a free search. It also banishes a Blackwing from your hand to activate that effect, which fuels the next piece of support, Blackwing Oster the South Wind. Oster reads that it can't be special summoned. When this card is normal summoned, you can target one of your banished level 4 or lower Blackwing monsters, special summon it in defense position. You can banish this card from your graveyard to activate one of the following effects. Place black feather counters on one black winged dragon you control, equal to the number of cards your opponent controls. Or you can place one wedge counter on each face-up monster your opponent controls that does not have one. In combination with Simoon, you're able to set up a banished Blackwing monster and then bring it back with Oster in order to leverage it into more plays. Its first bonus effect is pretty terrible because Black-Winged Dragon is bad, and that's really unfortunate. Also, Black-Winged Dragon isn't even part of the Blackwing archetype, which is a weird fact. It's just the naming of it. Black-Winged versus Blackwing. Konami, please. And the second effect combos with the new Retrain of Armor Master, which also uses wedge counters like the original Armor Master, which we'll get into right now. Blackwing Full Armor Master is a level 10 synchro that is unaffected by other card effects. Each time a monster your opponent controls activates its effect, place one wedge counter on that opponent's monster, maximum 1, after that effect resolves. Once per turn, you can target one monster your opponent controls with a wedge counter, take control of it. Once per turn, during your end phase, you can destroy all monsters on the field that have a wedge counter. It's a cool retrain of Armor Master that has the same flavor, but a bit spicier. With 3000 attack, it's a bit hard to beat in battle, but not impossible. Unfortunately, unlike Armor Master, it can be destroyed in battle, but in return is granted way better protection for modern day Yu-Gi-Oh! Its ability to use wedge counters is almost, I would say, fair, while you'll probably have to wait a turn in order to use its brain control like ability. You can use those monsters to attack with, or even just leverage them into link plays, which is really powerful, or you can just destroy them all with Full Armor Master's other ability, which means that your own monsters can push for game. Overall, it's a pretty good card, but it's just not enough to bring Blackwings into the modern age. Wow, that'll do it for Blackwings. They used to be one of my favorite decks, and it was one of the first decks that I ever entered a tournament with back when I was like 13 or 14. It was a long time ago, okay? I'm getting old here. Anyways, thanks for watching. If you made it this far, maybe consider subscribing. Smiley face. Weekly content from your boy Lee. Twitter, Twitch, and stuff are in the description. And I'll see you next week.